So leaving my full-time job that I was at for almost 9 years, something that I went to school for and then got out of college and then studied for another 4 years for my designations, was really, really hard. I think the hardest part about leaving my full-time job was the uncertainty and no longer having the security of a guaranteed paycheck. That scared the crap out of me, which is why I took almost a year and a half, almost 2 years preparing myself financially to leave my full-time job. I wanted to make sure that my emergency funds were established, not just for me, but for my business as well. I wanted to make sure that I had everything lined up perfectly before I left. I knew it was time for me to leave my full-time job when my complete heart and passion was no longer there. And also, I was making more from my business, The Budget Mom, than I was at my day job. Those were two main things that I noticed. I was sitting at my desk, but I was thinking about The Budget Mom. And it was really hard for me to stay focused and really give my true effort, which is what the company I was working for deserved. I was just no longer there in the way that I used to be. And knowing that I was making enough money from my business, I took that leap of faith. And it's funny how quickly things changed here at The Budget Mom when I could dedicate myself to one thing. It grew substantially and it thrived, and I was able to submerge my entire self into what I was doing here at The Budget Mom. So that's when I knew it was time to leave my full-time job. So the idea of running a debt-free company was a little scary in the beginning, but I think that from what I learned on my personal finance journey and after paying all of my debt off for my personal life, it was really important that the money habits that I learned and established working through that journey trickled down into what I did for my business, because it was such a life change for me. And becoming debt-free and the freedom that I found on that journey, it was important for me to enforce that in what I was doing with my business financially. So we do use a credit card for The Budget Mom, especially now that we have multiple employees and I am traveling. So one of the things that we ran up against was, what do my employees do if I'm not here? If I'm not down here at the headquarters and we need to get gas for the box truck, or Ryan needs to run to Staples because we ran out of office supply, or she needs printer paper for the copy machine, or things like that. And so we thought it would be a good idea to get a The Budget Mom credit card. But not only that, to have it be a travel rewards credit card. And we could use those rewards to fund future travel appointments for work-related travel for the following year. So that's currently how we're handling it. We have it set up to paid off every single month. So we do, and it's a travel rewards card. Oh man, so my daily routine for my business finances has really changed over the last year. See, I was under the impression that in order to find the same levels of success with my business as I did in my personal life, that I would have to do things the exact same way. That means budgeting by paycheck. That means manually tracking my spending. And though those were really big aha moments in my personal journey, my personal finance journey, I realized that things would be a lot more efficient for us as a business if we did things a little bit differently. So my daily routine for my business finances is I still get up every morning. I track my business spending. We still establish savings goals just like I would with my personal budget. We make sure that when we have extra income, we know exactly what we're pursuing and need to accomplish in order to be successful in the future for my business. And then it's a matter too of we have, maybe it's not daily, but we do have finance meetings. Me and Ryan sit down and we look at our expenses and say, okay, we are constantly looking for ways where we can save money, because that means we can do more for our readers. And because so much Everything that we do is based off of if we have the cash on hand to do it. And then not only that, how I compensate my employees. Anywhere we can cut costs adds greater value and benefit to what we're doing as a whole as a company and for my employees and all that. So we do budget a little bit differently. So most of you guys know I budget my personal finances every paycheck. Well, with the business, it's a little bit different. We budget monthly. It's easier for us to do projections. It's easier for us to see things in spending in monthly form. It's easier for us as a business to go back and analyze spending and expenses and look at those monthly reports. We don't track our spending manually with my business. We actually, now for the longest time, for almost 3.5 years, I did track manually for my business to a point where it got so overwhelming. And it was too time consuming. And on my business journey, I've learned that your time is valuable as well. And it was literally eating up a whole half of a Sunday for me to manually track my spending and put it into QuickBooks. So we went the online QuickBooks route, and now we have everything tied into that program and it tracks all my spending. The great thing about the online QuickBooks version is it allows us to approve every transaction. So I'm still seeing my spending, every single transaction, and I'm hitting an approve button when I make sure that everything is matching up correctly. So the thing is any goal or hobby can be turned into a business. That's the way I see it. After starting this business journey, I really learned that anything is possible. So if you have something that you really enjoy doing on your free time, and right now you consider that a goal or hobby, I want you to change your mindset from looking at it just as a goal or hobby and start to see the income potential. Because here's the thing, you're spending time doing this goal or hobby, and if you can make some additional income to fund your financial goals, then that should be something that you're looking at. Now, I turned my hobby of photography into an income stream when I first started my budgeting journey. In fact, that's how I made my first extra debt payment. I did artwork for a really long time and actually sold a couple of pieces of my artwork, and that added some additional income. It's really funny that the things that we don't think are of value or valuable to others are actually worth something to somebody else, even though you may not think it is. So if you want to start a business and you're doubting your capability to do so, or maybe it's a really scary thought to jump into that business pool and just do it, my number one piece of advice is, if you have passion for something and you wake up every day thinking about this, I think it's worth pursuing. Now, am I saying that you should do that irresponsibly? No. But if it's something deep down where it's in your heart, it's in your gut, you're living it, and it's your passion, and especially if that passion is helping people, and you really honestly think you can provide value to people's lives, then it's worth doing. And I really discovered that with the Budget Mom. Our number one mission from the very beginning was to build a community and help as many family and people and women as we could. And we still stand by that mission. And that passion of mine to help people was so deep. It was so ingrained in my heart and what I really wanted to pursue with my life that I had to do it. So I think that if you're having fears, take some time to research it. Take some time to look at what other people are doing. How are they doing it? And once you start researching, all of a sudden you'll start to say to yourself, hey, I can do that. Hey, this is a possibility because someone else is doing it. So it's just about opening up your mind and really knowing that it's something that you're capable of. My top 3 tips for starting a business is, number 1, make sure you're starting the business for the right reasons. So many of the time I hear people say, I want to start a business because I want more money. And if that is your one goal of starting your business, if that is the only goal for starting your business, it's going to be really hard to succeed. Because what happens on a business journey is it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Starting a business is extremely hard, and you're going to find yourself not knowing what to do. You're going to find yourself asking yourself, am I making the right decision? Can I do this for the rest of my life? Is it something worth leaving a job I've been at for a really long time? And I think in those moments where it's a struggle, if your only goal is to make income and it's not a passion and there's no drive to make more money is great until it's not. You can only go so far with that. I think you really have to have that level of dedication and passion besides just making money. Tip number 2, research before you start. So when I realized that the Budget Mom, the Budget Mom became a business because so many readers were seeing what I was doing in my personal life with my budgeting journey. They started requesting my materials. And at that time, when I realized that the level of value that I was adding to people's lives was enough for them to request what I was using, I had to research. What is the most cost-effective way to do this for me and for my reader? And I started looking at other businesses that were like what I wanted to do, and I looked at how they were doing it. What were the resources that they were utilizing? What were their communities like? What were their social platforms like? What were they selling? How are they marketing it? So research is number 2. Step number 3 is make sure that if and when you do start a business, you're financially prepared to do so. So a lot of the time I've heard horror stories of people who started a business. They didn't have the money to start that business, so they went out and got a loan or went into debt to start their business, and guess what? It didn't work. And then they were left with a ton of debt for a business venture that failed. That has never happened to me. However, I think it's really important that you don't put all of your eggs into one basket, right? That even though how excited you are and how passionate you are for starting a business, you have to make sure that you take the responsible steps to do it correctly in the beginning. Because if you start out doing it correctly financially in the beginning, going forward, it's going to be a lot easier.